The lecture hall was silent. 300 students from dozens of different worlds sat in curved rows that rose up toward the ceiling like steps. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and floating screens showed images of stars and planets. This was the Galactic Academy, the greatest school in all the known universe, where young minds came to learn about the mysteries of space and the many species that lived among the stars. Professor Vethron stood at the center of the room. He was a Calvari, a tall creature with shimmering scales that changed color when light touched them. His eyes were large and golden, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the hall without effort. He had taught at the academy for over 200 years, and there was very little he had not seen. But today, his face was serious, more serious than usual. "Today we will discuss something that most of you have wondered about," he said slowly. "We will talk about the Terran exclusion protocols." A murmur spread through the students. Everyone knew about the protocols, but no one really understood them. The rules were simple. Humans were not allowed to fight in any galactic war. They could not join military alliances. They could not send soldiers to help other worlds. If a conflict broke out anywhere in the galaxy, humans had to stay out of it. It made no sense to most species. Humans were one of the youngest civilizations in the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. They were physically weak compared to most other beings. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no psychic powers. A single Dramathi warrior could kill 10 humans without breaking a sweat. A Vrick soldier could cut through a human like paper. So why were they banned from war? In the front row sat 3 students who were more curious than most. Zix was a Prolethian, a small creature with 4 large eyes that could see in every direction at once. His skin was pale blue, and thin tentacles grew from his head instead of hair. He was young and eager to learn everything. Next to him was Mira Sol, a Valorian female, whose skin changed colors based on her emotions. Right now she was a calm shade of silver, but when she got excited or scared, her whole body would shift to bright oranges or deep purples. She was graceful and quiet, but her mind was sharp. The third student was Koth. He was a Dramathi, one of the warrior species that had conquered dozens of worlds in ancient times before joining the Galactic Council. He was massive, with thick gray skin like stone, and hands that ended in claws sharp enough to cut metal. But Koth had chosen to be a scholar instead of a fighter. He wanted to understand war, not participate in it. Zix raised one of his tentacles. "Professor, I do not understand. Humans are weak. Why would they need to be banned from anything?" The restricted archives were kept in a vault beneath the main building, protected by security systems that could detect any unauthorized life form. The walls down here were thick and dark, and the air felt heavy with secrets. Koth entered the access codes that the professor had given them. The massive door slid open with a low hum, revealing a circular room filled with holographic displays. An artificial intelligence controlled the archives. A calm voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome, students," the AI said. "You have been granted access to one file only. This file is classified Omega Black, the highest level of restriction. Are you prepared to proceed?" Zix's 4 eyes blinked nervously. "What does Omega Black mean?" "It means the contents have been judged as potentially dangerous to psychological well-being. Some who have viewed this file have required mental treatment afterward. Do you still wish to proceed?" The 3 students looked at each other. Koth was the first to speak. "We need to understand. Show us." The holographic display flickered to life. Words appeared in the air before them. "The Harvest Moon Incident. Year 2847, Galactic Standard. Location Kepler 442b, Human Colony World. Classification Omega Black. Warning, what you are about to see is real. The image shifted to show a beautiful green planet covered in forests and rivers. It looked peaceful, like a paradise. A small settlement appeared on the surface. Simple buildings made of wood and metal surrounded by farms that stretched to the horizon. This was New Meridian, the AI explained. A human colony of approximately 3,000 individuals. They were farmers, scientists, teachers, and families. They had no military presence. Only a small security force of 12 officers to handle minor problems. 3,000 farmers, Koth said slowly. His warrior training told him this was nothing. A small force could capture such a settlement in hours. Correct, the AI said. The humans of New Meridian wanted only to live in peace. They grew food, raised their children, and built a quiet life far from the busy center of the galaxy. The image changed again. The peaceful blue sky turned dark as massive black ships appeared above the colony. The ships were angular and cruel-looking, covered in spikes and weapons. The Vrix Dominion, Mirasol whispered, her skin turning pale white. Everyone knew about the Vrix. They were insectoid creatures, like giant mantises with razor-sharp limbs and armored bodies. They had conquered 47 worlds by the time of this recording. They saw other species not as equals, but as resources to be harvested. Slaves, food, raw materials. That was all other life meant to them. 10,000 Vrix warriors arrived at New Meridian on what the humans called the Harvest Moon, a full moon in autumn, the AI said. They expected no resistance. They expected easy prey. Zix leaned forward. What happened? The AI paused for a moment, as if even a machine felt uncomfortable with what came next. They made a mistake, it said. They attacked humans, and they discovered why that should never be done. The recording continued, and the three students watched as their understanding of the universe began to change forever. The recording showed the Vrix ships landing in a field just outside the colony. The ground shook as the massive vessels touched down, crushing crops and burning the earth beneath their engines. Doors opened along the sides of the ships, and warriors poured out like a black river. The colonists of New Meridian had never seen anything like it. Men and women stood frozen in their fields, staring at the sky. Children stopped playing and ran to their parents. The whole settlement seemed to hold its breath. Koth studied the human forms on the display. They looked so fragile to him. Soft skin that could be torn with a single claw. No natural weapons of any kind. Their bodies were small and slow compared to the Vrix warriors now surrounding them. They are helpless, he said quietly. This will be a slaughter. The AI continued the recording. A human man walked forward from the crowd of colonists. He was older, perhaps 60 years in human counting, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He wore simple farming clothes covered in dirt, and his hands were rough from years of work. This is Daniel Holt, the AI explained. He was a retired military captain who had served in something called the Border Wars. He came to Kepler 442b to escape violence and live peacefully. He wanted to grow vegetables and watch the sunset. He had not held a weapon in 20 years. Mirasol's skin shifted to a curious blue. A military man? But he looked so ordinary. He was ordinary, the AI said. That morning, he had been worried about whether his tomatoes would survive the coming frost. He had no plans for war. He had no desire to fight ever again. The Vrix commander stepped forward to meet Daniel. The creature was terrifying to look at, nearly 3 meters tall, with gleaming black armor and blades for arms. Its eyes were compound, like an insect's, reflecting the fear on the faces of the humans around it. Soft creatures, the commander said, through a translator device. You are now property of the Vrix Dominion. Surrender your population for processing, or be exterminated. You have 1 hour to decide. The recording showed Daniel Holt's face. Something changed in his eyes. It was small, just a flicker. But the AI paused the image so the students could see it clearly. "What is that expression?" Zix asked. He could not read human faces well. "Galactic psychologists have studied this moment extensively," the AI replied. "The expression is difficult to translate. It combines elements of anger, determination, and something humans call cold resolve. It is the look of a human who has decided that someone is going to die, and it will not be him." Daniel Holt spoke calmly into the communication device he carried. His voice was recorded clearly. "You have made a mistake coming here." The Vrix commander laughed. The sound was horrible, clicking and chittering, full of contempt. "Mistake? We have 10,000 warriors. You have farmers. There is no mistake." Daniel did not argue. He simply turned and walked back toward the colony. The colonists followed him in silence. Over the next hour, everything changed. The AI showed footage from inside the colony. Daniel gathered the people in the main square and spoke to them quietly. The recording could not capture his words, but it showed the faces of the listeners. Fear slowly transformed into something else. Backs straightened, eyes hardened, hands stopped shaking. "He told them the truth," the AI explained. "He said that the Vrix would not honor any surrender. They would take the colonists as slaves and food. Their children would be separated from them. Their lives would end in misery. He gave them a choice: die on their knees or fight." "But they had no weapons," Mirasol said. "How could they fight?" The AI displayed a list on the screen. In the next 6 hours, the colonists of New Meridian created 73 different types of weapons from materials available in their settlement. They used farming chemicals to make explosives. They used medical supplies to create poisons. They sharpened tools into blades. They built traps from everyday objects. A woman appeared on the screen. She was small and gentle-looking, with kind eyes and graying hair tied back in a simple style. Her name was shown as Catherine Price, and her occupation was listed as elementary school teacher. Catherine Price organized the colony's children into a communication network, the AI said. The children knew every hiding spot, every tunnel, every secret path in the settlement. They became messengers that the Vrix could never catch. She also taught them how to set simple traps using toys and school supplies. Zix felt his tentacles go stiff with shock. She used children in warfare? She gave children a way to protect themselves and their families, the AI corrected. Human psychology shows extreme protective instincts toward their young. When those young are threatened, adult humans become significantly more dangerous. And the children themselves wanted to help. They understood, even at young ages, that their families were in danger. The next face on the screen belonged to a man named Samuel Young. He was a mechanic, someone who fixed machines for the farmers. Within hours of the Vrix landing, he had converted 3 farming vehicles into explosive devices. He had turned irrigation pipes into launching tubes for homemade missiles. He had built weapons from engine parts and scrap metal. He had no military training, the AI noted. He simply understood how machines worked and applied that knowledge to causing damage. A third face appeared. Patricia Walsh, the colony's only doctor. She was supposed to heal people, to save lives. Instead, she spent that first night studying everything the colony's database knew about Vrix biology. By morning, she had created 3 different compounds that could kill them. "Humans are creative," Koth said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in his warrior's mind. "They solve problems. Any problems." "Correct," the AI said. "This is the first thing the galaxy failed to understand about humans. They are weak individually, yes. They have no natural weapons, yes. But they have minds that never stop working on problems. And when the problem is survival, they become very creative, very quickly." The recording showed the Vrix commander receiving reports after the first day. His forces had expected to simply collect the humans like harvesting grain. Instead, 12 Vrix warriors were dead. They had stepped on hidden traps. They had breathed poisoned air. They had been ambushed by humans who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. 12 dead, the commander said in the recording, his voice showing confusion. From farmers? His lieutenant responded with worry in its clicking voice. They are not behaving like prey. They are behaving like something else. The first night was worse. Humans, it turned out, could see well enough in darkness to fight. Vrix could not. And humans needed far less sleep than the insectoid warriors. While the Vrix army tried to rest, small groups of colonists crept into their camp. They killed sentries silently. They poisoned food supplies. They damaged equipment. By morning, 40 more Vrix were dead, and the army was exhausted. The commander looked at the recording device with something new in his compound eyes. It took the AI a moment to identify the emotion. Fear. What are these creatures? He asked no one in particular. He did not yet know the answer, but he was beginning to learn. The archive showed footage from day 5 of the conflict. The Vrix had expected to be loading slaves onto their ships by now. Instead, they had lost over 300 warriors, and they controlled nothing but the burned field where their ship sat. Daniel Holt had not slept in 4 days. The recording showed him moving through the forests outside the colony, coordinating groups of fighters through a simple radio system. His eyes were red and sunken. His body moved like a machine running on nothing but willpower. Medical data captured by colony sensors showed that his heart rate was dangerously high, and his body was consuming itself for energy. "Why does he not rest?" Mirasol asked, her skin shifting to worried purple. "His body is failing." Humans have a biological response called the fight-or-flight reaction. When threatened, their bodies release chemicals that increase strength, speed, and endurance, while reducing the sensation of pain and tiredness. In extreme cases, humans can maintain this state for days, sometimes weeks. They call it running on adrenaline. "But that must damage their bodies," Zix said. "It does. Severe damage. Humans who push themselves this hard often collapse afterward, sometimes permanently. They know this. They do it anyway." Koth leaned forward, his warrior's interest fully captured. They sacrifice their future health for immediate survival and for the survival of others. This is critical to understanding humans. They form bonds with each other that run deeper than logic. A human will destroy themselves completely to protect someone they love. This is not considered unusual behavior among their species. It is considered normal. The recording shifted to show a Vrix patrol moving through the forest. There were 50 warriors, heavily armed, scanning for any sign of human activity. They were confident. 50 Vrix could handle anything these soft creatures might throw at them. A human woman walked out of the trees ahead of them. She was old, perhaps 70 in human years. Her hair was white, and her body was frail. She carried a basket of fruit and wore a simple dress. She was smiling. The Vrix commander of the patrol held up a claw to stop his warriors. "Scan her." The scanner showed nothing. No weapons, no chemicals, no threat. Just an old woman with fruit. "Please," she said in a thin, trembling voice. "I want to surrender. I am too old to fight. I just want peace." Her name appeared on the archive display. Dorothy Mills. Occupation: retired grandmother. Her husband, the archive noted, had been killed in the initial Vrix landing when their ship crushed his home. The patrol commander clicked with amusement. "Finally, one of them sees reason. Take her for processing." 2 Vrix moved forward to grab her. Dorothy Mills kept smiling. She spoke quietly, words the recording barely captured. "I will see you soon, Harold." Then she pressed something hidden in her hand. The explosion killed Dorothy and 6 Vrix instantly. 3 more died from their wounds over the next hour. In the archive chamber, Mirasol's skin went completely white, the color of shock among her people. She killed herself, on purpose, to destroy enemies. Her husband was dead, the AI said. Her children had evacuated on an emergency shuttle during the first hours. She had nothing left to live for, and she had enemies she wanted to destroy. So she made a choice. "What kind of species does this?" Zix whispered. The AI answered without emotion. "Humans. Throughout their history, they have records of individuals sacrificing themselves for what they called the greater good. They consider it honorable. They write songs about it. They teach their children to admire those who give everything for others." Koth was silent for a long moment. His people, the Dramathi, were warriors. They understood sacrifice in battle. But this was something different. This was a grandmother with a basket of fruit, walking calmly to her death because she had decided it was the best use of her remaining life. The recording continued. Day 7, Day 10. The Vrix were now afraid to patrol outside their camp. The humans controlled the forests, the rivers, the fields, everything. They seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The footage showed a captured Vrix being questioned by humans. The warrior was restrained but not harmed. A man named Kenneth Ross, a schoolteacher before the invasion, asked questions calmly. What were the Vrix weak points? What would hurt them most? It expected torture. Instead, the humans just left it alone in a dark room. For 3 days. Humans discovered that Vrix cannot tolerate isolation, the AI explained. Their species has a collective psychology that requires regular contact with others. 3 days of loneliness caused more psychological damage than any physical torture could have achieved. When they came back, the Vrix told them everything. They learned their enemy, Koth said quietly. They found weaknesses and exploited them. This is sound military strategy. Yes, but remember, these were not soldiers. These were farmers and teachers. They invented these methods themselves, under pressure, with no training. They adapted. Day 11 brought something that changed the course of the battle. The Vrix commander, frustrated in losing warriors every day, made a decision. He ordered his ships to fire on the forests from orbit, burning miles of land where humans might be hiding. The attack killed many colonists. Hundreds died in the flames. The survivors did not break. They got angry. The archive showed Daniel Holt watching the fires from a hilltop. His daughter, a young woman named Emma, had been in those forests. She did not escape. The recording captured his face as he received the news. Grief twisted his features for exactly 3 seconds. Then something happened. His expression went completely flat, empty, cold. Galactic psychologists have a term for what happened inside Daniel Holt at that moment, the AI said. They call it emotional shutdown. Humans can turn off their feelings when those feelings become too painful. What remains is pure focus, pure purpose. It makes them extremely effective and extremely dangerous. Daniel Holt turned to the survivors gathered around him. His voice was steady, without any emotion at all. No more defense, he said. We take the fight to them. We destroy them all. Every single one. The colonists who remained numbered fewer than 1,000. They were facing an army that still held over 7,000 Vrix warriors. They did not hesitate. They did not argue. They simply nodded and began to prepare. The transformation was complete. These were no longer farmers and teachers hiding from an enemy. They were something else now, something the galaxy had never seen. And the Vrix were about to find out what that meant. The archive footage from Day 15 showed a Vrix army that no longer looked like conquerors. Their formations were ragged. Their warriors jumped at shadows. The clicking sounds of their communication had become quiet and nervous. 2,000 Vrix lay dead across the planet's surface. The humans had buried their own fallen in quiet ceremonies at night, but they had left the Vrix bodies where they dropped. A message, a warning. The human attacks came without pattern. Sometimes they struck in the morning, sometimes at midnight. Sometimes they attacked the same position twice in 1 hour. Sometimes they left an area alone for days before suddenly appearing in overwhelming numbers. Psychological warfare, Koth said, recognizing the strategy. They are breaking the enemy's spirit. Correct. Humans have a deep understanding of fear, the AI replied. They know how to create it, they know how to use it, and they know that a frightened enemy makes mistakes. The recording shifted to show a group of human fighters preparing for a mission. They were a strange collection, a woman who had been a chef before the invasion, a teenage boy who should have been in school, an elderly man with a mechanical leg. None of them looked like warriors. All of them had the same hard look in their eyes. Their leader was a man named Victor Kane. He had been a construction worker, someone who built houses and repaired roads. Now he commanded a strike team that had killed more than 200 Vricks. Tonight, we hit their fuel supplies, Victor said, pointing at a rough map drawn in the dirt. If we destroy their fuel, their ships cannot leave. They will be trapped here with us. The teenage boy raised his hand. His name was Christopher Wade. He was 14 years old. His parents and younger sister had died in the orbital bombardment. I want to volunteer for the inner team, Christopher said. The ones who get closest. Victor studied him for a long moment. You know what that means. The closest positions are the most dangerous. You might not come back. I know. Victor nodded slowly. Welcome to the inner team. Mirasol's skin cycled through colors of distress. He is a child. How can they let him do this? The AI responded carefully. Human children mature psychologically faster in crisis situations. Their minds adapt to their circumstances. Christopher Wade was no longer a child in the way you understand. He was a survivor who had chosen his path. The other humans respected his choice. The attack on the fuel depot was successful. Victor Kane's team destroyed enough fuel to ground the Vricks fleet for weeks. But 4 humans died in the assault, including the elderly man with the mechanical leg. He had thrown himself onto a Vricks warrior to give the others time to escape. The Vricks commander was running out of options. His army was slowly being destroyed. His soldiers were terrified and exhausted. The humans gave them no peace, no rest, no moment of safety. He made a final, desperate decision. He ordered his soldiers to capture humans alive and use them as hostages. Surely, he thought, these creatures would stop fighting to save their own people. The Vricks managed to capture 12 colonists during a raid. They broadcast a message to the humans: stop fighting or the hostages die. Daniel Holt's response was broadcast back within minutes. Those 12 people know what they signed up for. They know we cannot stop. Do what you want to them. It will not change anything. In the archive chamber, Zix made a sound of horror. He abandoned them? Watch, the AI said. The recording showed the 12 human captives inside a Vricks holding cell. They were bruised and bloody, but alive. The guards watched them with confusion. The humans were not crying. They were not begging. They were talking quietly to each other, almost calmly. A woman named Linda Park spoke to the others. They think having us gives them power. They are wrong. The rescue team will come, said another captive, a young man named Gary Bell. Linda shook her head. No, Daniel was right to say what he said. Our people cannot stop the fight for 12 lives, but we can make our capture cost them. That night the 12 captives attacked their guards. They had no weapons except their hands and their desperation. 8 of them died in the attempt, but they killed 23 Vricks in the process. And the 4 survivors managed to escape in the chaos, carrying information about the interior of the Vricks camp. Humans do not surrender, Koth said slowly, even when captured, even when they should be helpless. They do surrender sometimes, the AI corrected, but only when surrender serves a purpose. If capture means certain death anyway, they choose to fight. They would rather die causing damage to their enemy then die accomplishing nothing. Day 20 brought Christopher Wade back into the archive footage. Patricia Walsh, the doctor who had created chemical weapons from medical supplies, had developed something new. A biological agent based on local microorganisms, modified to attack Vrick's digestive systems. It was deadly, it was contagious among Vricks, and it could only be delivered one way: through direct contact with Vrick's feeding organs. The Vricks bit their food before eating it. They also bit prisoners during interrogation. It was how they absorbed information from other species' nervous systems. Christopher volunteered. "I will let them capture me," he said. "They will interrogate me, they will bite me, and then they will die." Daniel Holt looked at the boy for a long time. His face showed nothing, but his hands were shaking. "You understand this will kill you too," he said. "The agent needs time to work. You will not survive to see the results." "I understand. You are 14 years old." Christopher's eyes were old beyond his years. "My family is dead. My home is ashes. I am not afraid to die. I am only afraid of dying without meaning." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his voice was steady. "Then we will make sure your death has meaning." 2 days later, Christopher Wade walked into the Vricks camp, carrying a white flag. He claimed he wanted to betray the human positions in exchange for his life. He was frightened and crying and begging for mercy. The Vricks believed him. He was just a child after all. They took him for interrogation. They bit him, as they always did. Within 48 hours, 300 Vricks were dead from the plague. The disease spread through their ranks like fire, and their doctors had no way to stop it. By the time it burned itself out, their army had lost nearly 1,000 more warriors. Christopher Wade died on the 3rd day, his body consumed by the same disease he had carried. He was alone in a cell, surrounded by the dead and dying. The recording showed him in his final hours. His body was failing, but his face was peaceful. "Tell them it worked," he whispered to no one, not knowing if anyone would ever hear. "Tell them I did it." In the archive chamber, none of the 3 students spoke. Mirasol's skin had gone completely gray. Zix's tentacles hung limp. Even Koth, the warrior, had turned his face away. "He was a child," Mirasol finally said. "A child should not have to do such things." "No," the AI agreed. "But when humans are pushed far enough, even their children become weapons. This is not something they are proud of, but it is something they are capable of. And that capability is why the galaxy fears them." The Vricks were broken. Their army was dying, their morale destroyed, their commanders paralyzed with fear. They tried to retreat to their ships, but Daniel Holt had planned for that too. The reckoning was coming. Day 30 of the Harvest Moon incident. The Vricks commander stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the final preparations for departure. His army had been reduced from 10,000 warriors to fewer than 3,000. His soldiers were sick, exhausted, and terrified. The mission to harvest a simple farming colony had become a nightmare. "We leave within the hour," he ordered. "We will tell the Dominion that this world was barren. We will never speak of what happened here." His lieutenant clicked nervously. "Commander, the humans have been quiet for 2 days. No attacks, no sightings. It is strange. They know we are leaving. They have won. There is no reason for them to continue fighting." He was wrong. The recording showed what the Vrick sensors failed to detect. For 2 weeks, while the battles raged, small groups of humans had been digging. They worked at night, in silence, moving through tunnels they created beneath the burned fields. They carried explosives, mining charges, and improvised bombs, everything the colony could produce. They buried their weapons in a ring around the Vricks landing site. Daniel Holt had not slept in 11 days. His body was failing. Medical data showed that his heart was damaged, his kidneys were shutting down, and his brain was beginning to lose function. Doctors among the colonists had begged him to rest. He refused. I will rest when it is finished, he said. Not before. He stood on a hillside overlooking the Vrix camp, holding a simple radio transmitter. Around him gathered the survivors of New Meridian. Fewer than 600 people remained from the original 3,000. They were wounded, exhausted, and grieving, but they were still standing. They came to our home, Daniel said, his voice rough and broken. They killed our families. They burned our fields. They thought we would break. He looked at the faces around him. Farmers who had become soldiers, teachers who had become killers, children who had become warriors. Today we show them what happens when you attack humanity. Today we show the galaxy that we are not prey. He pressed the button on the transmitter. The explosions were massive. The ground beneath the Vrix ships erupted in fire and fury. The carefully placed charges detonated in sequence, collapsing the Earth into massive sinkholes that swallowed 2 of the 3 ships entirely. The 3rd ship managed to lift off, damaged and burning, carrying the survivors of the invasion force. The archive showed footage from inside that escaping ship. The Vrix commander stared at the screens, showing the destruction below. His compound eyes reflected the flames. "What are they?" he whispered. "What are these humans?" The recording shifted to the Galactic Council chambers 3 months later. Representatives from the 17 worlds sat in a circular hall, their faces grave. The Vrix commander stood before them, his once proud body now broken and bent. "We request that the Council declare war on the human species," he said. "They must be exterminated before they become a threat to all of us." The Kelvari representative spoke first. "Tell us again what happened. From the beginning." The Vrix commander told his story. He showed the recordings. He described the transformation of ordinary people into relentless fighters. He talked about the grandmother with the bomb, the child with the plague, the farmers who fought without sleep, the wounded who kept crawling forward to attack. When he finished, the chamber was silent for a long time. The Dramathi representative, a massive warrior even larger than Koth, was the first to speak. "You invaded their home with 10,000 warriors," he said slowly. "They had no military. They were farmers and teachers and children, and they destroyed you. Yes, you are asking us to go to war against a species that did this with farming tools and medical supplies. What do you think they would do if they actually had weapons?" The Vrix commander had no answer. The Valorian representative spoke next. "We have studied human history since this incident became known to us. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have refined the art of warfare far beyond anything we have developed. They have something they call total war, a concept where every resource, every person, every idea is dedicated to destroying the enemy." The Prolethian representative added more information. "Their bodies are weak, but their minds never stop adapting. In their history, whenever they faced a superior enemy, they found ways to win anyway. They invented new weapons, new tactics, new forms of fighting. Never." The Council reviewed more data. They learned about human psychological bonding, the way humans formed connections so strong that threatening one human could turn another into a killing machine. They learned about human creativity, the ability to turn any object into a weapon, any situation into an opportunity. They learned about human spite, the willingness to suffer enormous costs just to ensure that an enemy suffered too. And they learned about human children, children who could be taught to fight, children who would sacrifice themselves for their families, children who, if their parents were killed, might spend their entire lives seeking revenge. The vote was called. 17 species, each had to decide what should be done about humanity. The result was unanimous, but not what the Vrix expected. The Council declared that humans would be banned from all galactic warfare. They could not send soldiers to fight in other species' conflicts. They could not participate in any war, anywhere in the galaxy. The Vrix commander was outraged. "You are protecting them after what they did?" The Kelvari representative shook his head slowly. "We are not protecting them. We are protecting everyone else." He explained the Council's reasoning. If humans were allowed to fight alongside other species, they would teach their methods to others. The galaxy would learn human tactics, human ruthlessness, human total war. Civilization itself might not survive. And if any species went to war against humans, the result would be catastrophic. Not because humans would win quickly, they might not win at all, but because they would never stop fighting. They would burn their own worlds rather than surrender them. They would create weapons of unimaginable destruction. They would turn the entire galaxy into a battlefield. "Humans are not like us," the Dramathi representative said. "We fight for territory, for resources, for pride. Humans fight for something they call principle. They fight until there is nothing left to fight with, and then they find something else. We cannot defeat that. We can only avoid waking it." The recording ended. The archive AI spoke one final time. "The Terran exclusion protocols have remained in effect for over 200 years since the Harvest Moon incident. No species has attacked a human world since. The humans themselves have accepted the restrictions, though some consider them insulting. They are members of the Galactic Council, welcomed in all peaceful activities, respected by all species." Zix finally spoke. "And Daniel Holt? What happened to him?" "He lived for 22 more years. His body was damaged beyond full recovery, but he survived. He raised the orphaned children of the colony. He spoke publicly about the incident only once." Mirasol asked, "What did he say?" The AI displayed the final recording. Daniel Holt, older now, sat in a garden full of flowers. His eyes were tired but peaceful. "They ask me how we did it," he said. "How farmers beat soldiers. How weak people beat strong ones. How we turned everything into a weapon." He paused and looked directly at the camera. "The answer is simple. They came to our home. They touched our people. We are human. We do not forgive that. We do not forget. And we do not stop. Ever." The recording ended. The three students sat in silence. Koth, the warrior, understood now why his own species had voted for the exclusion. But he did not want to face an enemy that turned children into weapons and grandmothers into bombs. Zix understood why beings who seemed so weak were treated with such respect. It was not their bodies that made them dangerous. It was their minds and their hearts. Mirasol understood the most important lesson of all. Humans were not monsters. They were not cruel by nature. They laughed, they loved, they built peaceful communities and raised families. But somewhere inside every single one of them was a switch, a transformation waiting to happen. Push them too far, threaten what they loved, and the switch would flip. And then there would be no stopping them. The galaxy had learned this lesson once. It had no desire to learn it again. As the three students left the archive, Koth spoke quietly. "Do not provoke them. Ever. It was the most important lesson in the galaxy. And every species had learned it well."